Olá a todos, convido-vos a ouvirem mais um episódio do Isto não estava no prefácio e desta vez temos a nossa primeira internacionalização, que eu espero que seja a primeira de muitas. Temos a Ruth Ware, uma das autoras de thrillers mais lidas no mundo. 7 dos livros dela que fazem parte do New York Times Best-Selling Books e também da lista do Sunday Times. Falámos de muitos dos seus livros, a começar pelo In a Dark Dark Wood, que foi o primeiro, e depois terminámos com The Perfect Couple e depois com The Woman in Suite 11, que é o último livro da autora. Falámos sobre reality shows, processo criativo, como tudo começou, e a Ruth mostrou-se muito sorridente e bem disposta. Confessou que vem muitas vezes a Portugal e nós vamos ficar à espera de termos um bocadinho para nos cruzarmos com ela. A conversa está toda em inglês, espero que gostem e que compreendam. Hello, Ruth. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm kind of nervous, but I'm really, really happy that you took up on this invitation to be on my podcast and YouTube
Oh,
channel.
well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so it's your first time doing something with a Portuguese person. Have you
I
ever been in Portugal?
I think it's my first time doing Portuguese media. It's actually not my first time. My sister-in-law is Portuguese,
Oh,
and I've been to Portugal many times. Absolutely love it as a country. It's one of the
yeah.
most beautiful places. But I don't speak any Portuguese, so
It's kind of hard, but probably we'll do the conversation in English. I will only say just a few words in Portuguese. Probably the translation of the book titles and everything will be in English. And if someone doesn't understand, they have to understand. So that's okay. We'll talk in English, okay?
thank you very much for accommodating my.
No, here in Portugal we have it's almost I can't say almost everyone, but we have it's easier for us to understand English
It's a
because
very high
we
degree
have
of English
subtitles
speaking,
in
isn't it?
everything. So
Yeah.
we are used to listening to several other languages, so it's easy. It's easy. So the people that are just listening can see that you are on your Ruth Ware spot, that you have your books all over
I do.
on
Yes,
the
yes. This is
corner.
my little Zoom corner of my office. It's the one bit of my office that I keep tidy. If I turned it around, you would see piles of books everywhere and paperwork and abandoned tote bags and yeah, but this is my little tidy corner. So
That's not the office with the that big room with all the books that has a green couch.
um
Probably that's on a publisher. Probably it's a big, big house. I saw it on YouTube on several videos.
Oh, maybe. No, my I have a couch, but mine is blue, as you can see. So I
Okay.
guess, yeah, I might have been doing it at my publisher's office. Maybe I've done quite a lot of
Probably
filming there, so
because
that could be it.
otherwise you would be living in a mansion because that's a really, really big room.
Sadly, I am not. So just a very ordinary small office. So
Okay, Ruth. So let me tell you that you were born on the biggest year, 1977.
the best year,
Yes, best year. What is your month?
September.
Oh, I'm January, so I'm older.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll be the little sister just this once.
Okay, Ruth. So here, let me just tell in Portuguese what are the books that we have here, okay, from you. So the first one is In a Dark, Dark Wood. In Portuguese is Numa Floresta Muito Escura. That was the first book that I read. I read almost not everyone, but almost all your books. So then you wrote The Woman in Cabin 10, read that one. The Lying Game, I didn't. The Death of Mrs. Westaway, didn't read it. The Turn of the Key is my favorite book. My favorite book. I have asked the Portuguese publisher so many times to bring that book because, and to be honest, in my reader's opinion, I think it's one of the books that it's a little bit different because it's a little bit spooky. Okay, don't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. It's got that, especially, I mean, obviously I don't know how it is in other languages, but my English audiobook reader, I've had more feedback about her version of that book than almost anything because she does the kind of creak in a really spooky way. And lots of people have emailed me to say, okay, your book was scary, but the audiobook reading was really, really scary.
No, it's true because all the books I read, all your books were audiobooks, always audiobooks. And when you made that noise, I remember that years ago. And when I did my book review on YouTube, I did that same noise. Yes,
I
yes,
mean, what can I say? Imogen does a very good job, so yeah.
yeah. And
But yeah, it's
she,
definitely it's one of my more kind of spooky, scary. I'd say my books are on a bit of a spectrum. I did a fun thing on social media once where I assigned them like a scariness rating using
Mhm.
ghost emojis. And not everyone agreed with me, but I think Turn of the Key is probably my yeah, it's probably my maybe not my scariest, but probably my spookiest book.
Yeah, spookiest. Yeah, I agree, agree. And then one by one, the hit girl. I started listening like 3 days ago. Haven't finished. It's with also with Imogen. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That she does all your books.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. But it's because you chose her, or it's just like that, how it works.
So I didn't choose her, in
Okay.
fact. My
But you're happy with
publishers
it. So,
just picked her out and I got sent a kind of sample of her
mhm.
reading. This was way back when I wrote In a Dark Dark Wood, and I got sent a sample of her reading the first chapter and they basically said, "What do you think?" And I thought she was great. Some authors get sent like a kind of menu of audiobook readers where you can sort of listen to how they do each one. I just got sent Imogen and I thought she was brilliant and said, yes, really happy to have her doing the audiobook. And since then, she's done all of mine. So I think sometimes people who know me mostly through the audiobooks are a little bit surprised when they meet me in person because I don't sound exactly like Imogen.
And she does several accents, and that's also really really good. I was
Yeah, she's
saying,
really good at accents, which
yeah,
I am not, because
yeah.
I do love reading, and people often say, like, why don't you read your own audiobooks? And the truth is because I can't do regional accents. I can write them, but I can't read them.
I haven't finished the Hit Girl. That one is not in Portugal. But the Perfect Couple, I listened to it last month and I really enjoyed it because I think it was very different from all your books. Also, the turn of the key, as we mentioned, it's different, it's spooky, but this one it's very, very original. And I
Oh, thank you.
mentioned that because, and this is a question for you. I sort of came out with an hashtag. It's called, it can translate to popcorn thrillers, like not yours, but those like for example like Frida McFadden and a lot of other authors. That thrillers are just are fast paced, but they are always the same. I don't know how to explain in English. The same way that you write, the same formula, And I think in your books, it's not because you're here and that I'm talking to you. It's my honest opinion. You don't you all your books are like you who done it, and we know that we have to find the person that did something, but I think it's different. You don't have the same formula all over your books, and I find that very interesting. And on the Perfect Couple, I really love those shitty Netflix reality shows on the beach. I love them. I just finished Love is Blind UK yesterday, so I really like that. And that transported me to that environment. So, how did you came up with that reality show? How did you think this is a thriller that well, it's original. I'm going this way this time.
Well, so it's really interesting that you say that you love reality TV because I don't really watch a lot of reality TV. So in a way, was a really weird choice for me to decide to set a mystery novel there. But you're right. I do. All of my books are very different. I get quite bored as a writer if I write the same thing again and again. So I try to do different things each time. I often, I'll tell the books in different perspectives or different voices, or like the turn of the key is told in the format of letters all the way throughout. One Perfect Couple is mostly first person narrated, but it has kind of diary entries and radio calls sort of scattered throughout it, as kind of, I guess, sort of found documents. But yeah, so the idea originally was given to me by another writer, the writer Gillian McAllister, who wrote a
I know
really good
her.
book.
I know her
Yeah.
well. I read one of her books, and the her latest one is over there on the shelf,
Oh,
but I haven't
there
read
you
it.
go.
Yeah,
You see, I don't need to explain to you. And she writes sort of, I would say, kind of sort of
back and
similar
forth.
niche to mine. They're a bit
Mhm.
less whodunit than mine, but they're kind of twisty, sort of psychological thrillers. And I was doing an event with her, and it was just after lockdown, and I was talking about how I'd got massively into The Traitors. Did that air in Portugal, The Traitors reality TV show?
I don't think so. I don't
Maybe not. I
remember.
don't know.
Mm.
So it was hugely popular in the UK and I think in America too, although they have a different version.
But it's not on
Um,
Netflix. It's not streamed.
no, it's BBC,
Oh
I
no,
want to
no,
say.
we don't have that. No.
It is really good. If it ever gets onto Netflix, do
Mm-hmm.
watch it. So basically, it's very different from your normal reality TV show. Basically, the premise is that 20 strangers go and live in a house together. It's this beautiful mansion. And most of them are what the show calls faithfuls. So they're playing the show kind of truthfully. They're all in it together. They're collaborating. They're trying to win a big prize pot. Three of the contestants are what the show calls traitors. So they are out to betray the other contestants. They do it in various different ways by kind of sabotaging them, and they get to murder them at night and all sorts of there's all kind of complicated game mechanics. But the at the end of every day, the group has to sit down and try and
Ah,
figure out
yeah.
who are the faithfuls and who are the traitors, and they vote, and the person with the most votes gets eliminated from the show. So it's really brutal. It's really fascinating because it makes you realize how incredibly bad people are at figuring out who is lying to them. And every time, especially at the beginning of the show, the people who get voted off are not the traitors. They're like people who are a bit socially awkward or people who are a bit blunt, a bit too honest, speak their mind a bit too much, or and people will come up with the most extraordinary reasons for kind of justifying what they do. So they'll say, oh, I didn't like the way she looked at me on the first day, or she said this thing that, didn't sit right with me. And it's never about that. It's just them trying to justify their own kind of hunches and prejudices. Anyway, all the crime writers I knew were completely obsessed with this show, and we all watched it religiously. Um, so I was doing this event with Gillian, and I said, how much I've been enjoying The Traitors. And we started talking about reality TV shows in general. And I think she like watches Love Island and all those kind of shows, and I really don't. And I said, the thing is, it's a miracle more of those shows don't end in murder because you can see how the producers are kind of
Yeah.
they're sort of winding the contestants up to this fever pitch of, emotion and resentment and anger and frustration. And Gillian said, that sounds like one of your books. And I was writing a different book at the time. I was writing Zero Days and I didn't really think about it. And then when I sat down to write my next book, I thought about it and I thought that does sound like one of my books. But I knew that I didn't want the game show at the heart of it to be something like The Traitors. I didn't want the point of it to be sort of lying and deceiving. I sort of wanted that to be the crime half of the book. So I had to create this new game show, and it turns out it's surprisingly hard coming up with a reality TV show
But
concept. I kept
you had to watch probably several of them too,
Yeah, I did. So
because
I
the
sat down
idea,
and
because when I was reading it, I thought, well, she's a major fan because every all the tropes, all the cliches are here, so she probably watched a lot of
Well,
And that
that's the
one,
thing. So yeah, so I did have to sit down and
yeah.
kind of watch it, but I sort of watched it like a kind of anthropologist in a way because I was watching it sort of with a notebook going, this is interesting. Do they always do this? So yeah, it was.
And the one that you mentioned, the traders, Netflix has one. Probably they just copy pasted, because I watched 2 episodes and it's the same. They have to discover who is lying, but it's just one at a time. It's
Oh, is that
probably
the mole? I think I've
no,
seen.
no,
I
no.
think
It's not the mall, but it's the same thing.
it's
They
sort of
have
similar
like
idea, right?
a treasure in their room, and they have to pretend they don't have everything. They don't have the treasure, and they have to find out. Oh, it's her because she looked at me different this morning at breakfast. Yeah, it's the same
Yeah, it
thing.
sounds
It's
very
the same
similar
thing.
idea. Yeah.
Now I'm going to jump through your books, but before that, I just read that you used to work at a child books you used to a shop, sorry, and you used to do PR, publicist, you used to teach English to foreign people, but then you were pregnant and you said, like being at home. Probably I should find a job that allows me to work from home. And that's when you decided to start writing, right?
Well, I'd always written,
Mm-hmm.
right from when I was a teenager, I'd always written like, stories and novels and romances and science fiction and everything. But it was, yeah, you're right. It was when I was on maternity leave. That was when I thought not just I'd like to write, but if I want to continue
Yeah.
writing, I need to get published because I have to find a way of making money from this. Otherwise I knew I was going to have to go back to work at this very demanding, pretty full-on job. Um, and I thought I'm not going to have time to, wash my hair, let alone
Hmm.
carry on writing these sort of stories in the evening. So I thought if I want to continue doing this, I have to try and start doing it professionally. So yeah, that was when I sat down and I wrote a novel, not just for me, but with a view to sending it out to an agent, to getting it published, to, hopefully getting a publishing contract that would allow me to take a bit more time off work to do writing and but still pay for childcare. So
And
yeah, definitely was having my kids who, yeah.
how long did it take for you to get published from the moment you gave your manuscript to an agent?
Um, so from the moment I kind of decided that I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do this, it took me probably 2 or 3 years to get signed by an agent. So I sent the manuscript out to a bunch of agents, and a lot of them liked the concept, were quite complimentary, but I hadn't really edited it. And so I kept getting sort of feedback back about this and that, and none of it was the same feedback. So I sort of knew that whatever was wrong with it, it wasn't like something that people could put their finger on. So I sent it to a bunch of my friends. I joined a writing group and got feedback on it from other writers. But I think what made the biggest difference actually was I joined the writers group, but it wasn't the feedback that I got from other people, although that was useful. It was because for the first time I was critiquing other people's work. So, it's usually done on a kind of reciprocal thing. You say, you look at my extract, I'll look at your extract. And it was reading other people's work with a sort of editorial eye and thinking, what's successful about this? What needs to change? Why am I not gripped by this? That gave me the tools to go back and do the same thing with my own work. And it was amazing how often I would see something in somebody else's work, type up, a comment to them explaining why it wasn't working for me. And then I would go back and see the same thing in my own work and be like, of course. So I spent probably a year or two editing and tweaking, sent it out again to another bunch of agents, and this time it got picked up by the woman who is still my agent today. And after that, after she signed me, it was pretty quick. It was probably 6 weeks from that to having a publishing contract, which was pretty amazing.
It's amazing. I don't know if you know, here in Portugal, we don't have agents. A lot of writers would love to have an agent, but since they don't make They make just a few. The money that comes from books, it's not good here in
Yeah.
Portugal, so they don't have fees to there's no agents here. It doesn't work like that. And I was listening, as I was listening to you, I had a conversation with a friend of mine that she just published her new book. I worked with her on her manuscript, and she has a lot of experience of doing those events with writers. She went to the United States. She's Portuguese, but she used to write. She wasn't published, but she was a writer. She is a writer. And she was telling me the same thing as you did. When she was there, when they all got together and read each other's work, and she said, this is what I want. This is very fruitful for me to be learning from other people. And those I was remembering what she told me. It's the same thing that you did, that it's important to read other people's work so you can learn from it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the single best thing that you can do. And even if you don't do it in a kind of professional way, in terms of if you're not actually giving feedback to other people, I think you can do it by just, just reading books that you love, or sometimes more importantly, books that don't work for you, and
Hmm.
trying to sort of read it with an editorial eye as if you were kind of editing it. Um, yeah, it's a very different skill to writing, I think. Writing, you have to be able to be vulnerable and silly and passionate and allow yourself to make mistakes. But then you have to turn off that side of your brain and become very, very critical to make your work as good as possible. And it can be very difficult switching from one to the other, because if you let the critical voice in when you're writing, then the writing becomes stilted and it's difficult. And if you let the sort of passionate, silly voice in when you're editing, then it doesn't get to be as good as it could be. So,
Okay, Ruth. So regarding the next few months, is you'll have The Woman in Cabin 10 on Netflix. I don't know when it's going to premiere. Do you know?
I believe it's 10th of October, as far as I know, everywhere. Because it's a Netflix
Yeah, it's
original. So
worldwide. Yes, yes.
yeah, so I
So it's
think that
with.
means it
Mhm.
wherever Netflix is, it will be
Yeah,
10th of October.
yeah. So it's with Emily Blunt. Uh,
No, it's Keira Knightley.
really? Where did I
Yeah.
get Emily Blunt? Probably because she's everywhere nowadays.
She's in a lot of films.
Yeah,
Yeah, she
I don't know
she
how
was in The
because
Girl
I
on the
imagine
Train,
I
so maybe
imagine
it was in your
yeah,
head, but
I imagine her face with the post. I know that's probably from the woman in the train.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
imagine. I'm so sorry, Keira
That's
Knightley.
okay. Emily
Uh,
Blunt is amazing, but Keira
yeah.
Knightley is also fantastic.
I already read The Woman in Sweet 11. Also read it like 3 months ago. It's not here in Portugal, but I believe Clube do Autor will bring it here for us to read. Um, and why did you decided that you needed to write? I know the answer because I looked it up, but other people that are not listening don't know. Why did you decided that you needed a sequel? You wanted to give a new voice to Lo. Why did you decided that, and how did it work with Netflix? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, well, so to answer the second part of your question first, I think a lot of people have naturally assumed that I wrote a sequel because it was coming to
No,
Netflix. But in fact, when I wrote The Woman in Sweet 11, I didn't know
of
that it was
course.
going to be, the book was optioned for film, gosh, almost 10 years ago. I think it was optioned the year it came out, which was 2016. And since then, it's been sort of, passed around and in development and at various different stages. So, of course, I always hoped that it would be made into a film. But as a writer, you don't really have a sense of how likely it is to happen, how long that might take. Um, and so I guess it's probably 2022. I was having a conversation with my agent about what I intended to write next. And I said, well, I've got an idea for the book I want to write next, but after that, I think I might write a sequel to The Woman in Cabin 10. And that was like the film was not even on the horizon at
Mm-hmm.
that point. And I was halfway, more than halfway through writing Sweet 11 when I got the call from my film agent to say they've greenlit Cabin 10. It's going to be a film. Keira Knightley's playing Lo. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of so it was in one way it was really lovely because it meant that I could just I'd written the sequel that I wanted to write without worrying about how that was going to work with the film. And inevitably, like the world of the film is a bit different, some of the characters are
Mm-hmm.
different, some of the story threads are a bit different.
Were you a part of the process?
I mean, not really. I
Okay.
was, they send you the script and things like that, but I didn't adapt it for film.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't involved in that side of things. I think they've done an amazing job. It's very difficult to condense a big clue heavy novel into, a short, heart pumping film. So I think they've done fantastically. I would not have had the necessary brutality to cut out, sort
Mm-hmm.
of two-thirds of my book. So I'm very glad somebody else did that. But it meant that I could sort of write The Woman in Suite 11 exactly as I wanted it to be in the book world without worrying about how that would impact anything else. But to come back to the first part of your question, why I decided to do it, because for years I'd said I wouldn't write a sequel, and people, kept asking me at events and emailing me and saying, would you ever write a sequel to any of your books? And I kept saying, no, no, I don't think so. But probably the book that I had the most, not actually, no, the book that I had the most questions about, full stop, was probably The Turn of the Key, which
Yeah.
you all know as you've read it, has an ending that I'm trying not to give spoilers here. It's an ending that gave people a lot of big feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they wanted to write to me about those big feelings. Um, so that's the book that I've probably had the most correspondence about the ending. But I would say the book that I've had the most questions about, what happened to the characters? Are they okay? What happened next? That was probably Cabin 10. And people just really kept asking me about Lo. And so I suppose, over the years, I kept thinking about her and wondering about how she was doing, kind of in that way of like a friend that you haven't seen for a while. And you're sort of like, oh, I wonder how so and so is. Um, and I guess just because I just kept thinking about her, the ideas for sort of plots and, what ifs kept wandering on into my head until eventually I had this idea for a book that I suddenly really, really wanted to write. So I had to phone up my editor and say, I said I wouldn't write a sequel to any of my books. I actually am going to. And it's been so lovely watching, people reconnect with Lo, and people who read her 10 years ago kind of, be like, oh, she's, this
And
sounds
even though you didn't thought this through, now you're going to sell more books, and of course, the woman in Suite 11 will be huge because of the movie, and that's great. And
fingers
that's
crossed.
great.
It's
I
a
also,
happy accident, put it that
yeah,
way.
it's because you deserved it. The universe wants to give it back to you,
Thank
the
you.
things
I
you
wish I could
deserve.
pretend it was, my incredible sort of career professionalism. In fact, it is an enormous coincidence, but a very happy one for me.
I also discovered that you have, while it's developing, also screen to screen in a dark wood with, as I think, with Reese Witherspoon in it, or
I think she's attached as a
yeah,
producer.
attached, yeah,
I'm not sure. That's been actually they bought the rights. It's not even optioned. Since yeah, gosh, 2015 or something.
and the Lion
So
Game
it's
also,
interesting that Cabin 10 made it to
yeah,
screen first. But the hope is obviously that once one book goes to screen, there's like a sort of
of
domino effect.
course, and also the Lion Game, right?
Yes, that's also under option. So I'd say most of my books have some kind of sort of film or TV thing going on. The Death of Mrs. Westaway does not.
Hmm.
It would be a very hard book to film for plot reasons. So not all of my books kind of lend
Okay.
themselves to film particularly. But yeah, mo I would say most of them have some sort of project going on.
So, Ruth, I asked you about your three favorite books, and you said that you have a lot of them. It wasn't possible to choose. So, you chose three books that you based on the Perfect Couple book that you mentioned that. So it's and then there were none by Agatha Christie, and then The Lord of the Flies by William Golding, and last and Give Me Your Hand by Megan Abbott. So why did you chose these three books?
Yeah, so yeah, you very kindly asked me for my favorite books, but I find it it's something I'm asked a lot, obviously, because it's a great question, but I'm just not someone who has like one sort of lodestar book that they can point to and say, that's my
Yeah, me
favorite.
neither.
Yeah, there's so many amazing books out there and they're all incredible. So I instead picked three books that, yeah, that sort of influenced me for One Perfect Couple. One of them was obviously And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, because it is, it's impossible to set a whodunit on an isolated island and not think about that book. I'm not going to say it's the first. I'm sure there's not murder mysteries set on islands before Christie came along, but it's definitely one of the best and one of the most influential. And the way she plots it is so clever, and the sort of sense of encroaching dread, and the way that the characters in the book kind of become more and more animalistic as the book goes on. And that really influenced me in terms of the way the characters in One Perfect Couple become sort of more true to their essential selves in both good and bad ways. It becomes very clear what kind of people they are at their heart, and they become less worried about hiding that. So yeah, that was definitely a huge inspiration. Um, Lord of the Flies by William Golding, obviously a classic. I read it at school. Um, it's not a book that I love in the sense
You
of
mentioned that also.
yeah, it's a very cold book. It's a very chilly book. It's a very cynical book. That basically its thesis is that people are cruel and, I mean, animalistic, to go back to the Agatha Christie thing, and that everybody will revert to that eventually, given the right pressures, particularly children. And the funny thing is, in real life, it turned out not to be true. So there was a real life scenario where a bunch of schoolboys were marooned on a desert island, very similar circumstances to Lord of the Flies, and they did not behave the way the kids did in Lord of the Flies. They took care of each other. They organized shifts to make sure that they had enough food and water. They took care of the sick. They were all alive when they were rescued, and they'd been trying to, like, teach each other things. And so I think in actual fact humanity is much better than William Golding gave it credit for, and I think that is something that comes across in One Perfect Couple, that I am not as cynical as he is. I am still pretty cynical about humanity, but I think we are better than Golding thought, so that probably comes through in the plot. And the other book, I'm not sure the real influence for
Mhm.
Lila in One Perfect Couple being a scientist is based on my husband, who is has a very similar career path to hers. But there's not many books about female scientists out there. There's particularly not many psychological thrillers, and one that's really excellent, and more people should read it, is Give Me Your Hand by Megan Abbott. God, okay, I'll say that again. One which more people should read is Give Me Your Hand by Megan Abbott, which is set in the sort of cutthroat world of academia, and has two female scientists at its heart. It's really good, and it's really, really clear-eyed about the sort of pressures and yeah, the sort of cutthroat nature of scientific research.
That one I didn't know. I had to look it up. That it was new for me. So now I'm going to quote your best friend, okay? It's a big paragraph, but I'm going to quote her. So she said, um, Gosh, I have no idea. We've known each other for decades, so she'd probably tell you some incredibly embarrassing anecdote about me when I was 10. Oh no, this is not a quotation from your best friend. I thought it was a quotation because usually the writers they have a quotation that they ask,
Oh,
you know.
oh, okay.
So
I should have asked my best friend. Sorry, I didn't think about that. I don't know why not.
so it's
No, that's me. I was trying to imagine what
yeah.
she would say.
So you're imagining what you would say. Okay.
Yeah.
We've known each other for decades, so she'd probably tell you something incredibly embarrassing anecdote about me when I was 10. One thing I'd completely forgotten, but she brought it up the other day, was the first time she came over to my house to play. I took her up to my room and then immediately picked up a book and started reading. She thought it was very rude, and I mean she's not wrong, but it's also very on brand for me. I have no memory of this, but apologized anyway, while admitting there is still a fair chance I would do that today. I quite often sneak off at parties to read. However, I must be doing something right as a friend because we're still BFFs decades later.
Yeah, it's so funny. She brought it up to me. I mean, it must have been a couple of years ago, and we were talking about, memories of playing around each other's houses. And she said, "Do you remember the first time that I came around your house?" I had no memory of this whatsoever, but it sounds exactly like something I would do. So I immediately said, "I'm so sorry. I can't believe it."
When you sneak out to read in parties, your parties or other people's parties?
Usually other people's parties. It's normally like, if you're at those really big kind of scary industry things where there's like
Okay.
4,000 people and you're sort of smiling and you can't hear anyone, I will surprisingly often, not for the whole evening, but just kind of go to the loo or the cloakroom and just, I've always got loads of
Oops, there's a
manuscripts
book
on
on my
my
in my
phone.
coat. I just found a book in my
Exactly.
coat. What the
Yeah,
hell
I'll
is the
just
book
like
doing
open up
here?
the app on my phone and start reading somebody's book. It just gives you a 10-minute kind of decompression and then you feel you can go back in and do the party again.
Do you use a e-reader or just stick to old to books, to normal
So
books?
if I'm reading like for pleasure, just kind of books that on holiday or something, I always read in paper.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the lovely things about being a writer is you get sent a lot of manuscripts to blurb and give your quote to put on the cover. So for that, I read on an e-reader on my phone. So I don't usually buy ebooks, but it's easier to read through like the Kindle
Of
app or the
course.
Kobo app. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so could you recommend a book you love? You said, I just sent this book to a friend, so it's fresh in my memory, but I adore The Leopard by Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa, 1958. It's a kind of a love letter to the kingdom of the two Sicilies on the eve of Garibaldi's Risorgimento, an elegy to a way of life that was already a dying memory by the time Tomasi put pen to paper. I don't speak Italian, so I can only read it in translation, but it's one of my favorite books, so I often reread it.
It's such a beautiful book. I don't know what the Portuguese title would be. In Italy, it's Il Gatto Pardi.
Now
Um,
it's the same, the leopard, leopardo.
oh, apparently, it's actually a type of Seville on his or serval. That's on his coat of arms. It's not a leopard, but it's translated into English as leopard as a leopard. It's a really beautiful book. It's almost kind of plotless in a way, and I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about it. Is it's the complete opposite to the kind of books I write, which is very structured and there's a lot of sort of back and forth between the reader and the writer in terms of, me trying to hoodwink you and you trying to guess what I'm trying to say. This is a completely different type of book. It's more just a prose poem about this way of life that was disappearing. Um, and yeah, it's beautifully written and it transports you to Sicily for free. So
What was the first book that made you jealous, the kind of I wish I had written this?
Oh, first one, I honestly can't remember. The first one that I loved enough that I wanted to write my own version of it was The Tombs of Atuan by Ursula Le Guin. And I wrote, when I was 12, my teacher said that we could write a story instead of homework over the summer holidays. And I came back with 100 pages of this very thinly veiled Ursula Le Guin ripoff. So I guess it would be that one.
Okay. So, next question. Do you have any superstition or strange habit when you're writing?
Not really, but often my books are about superstitions. So I do often, when I see magpies, I try to see two, because it's of the rhyme, one for sorrow, two for joy. Um, and I love the idea of two magpies bringing you joy, and I put that into one of my books, that rhyme.
Have you read that thriller, The Magpie? I don't know if it's the Magpie, but it's on the
By
title of the
Mark
book,
by Mark
Magpie.
Edwards. Is that by
I
Mark
don't
Edwards,
remember.
the
It's
writer?
it's about a nanny. It's about a
Oh,
nanny that I think she's trying to steal the baby, something like
oh,
that.
or maybe it's that Anthony Horowitz. I'm not sure if I've read the one that you're talking about, but yes, it's there's definitely a magpie theme in crime. There's quite a lot of crime books about magpies.
What would your reader what would your reader self from 23 years ago never believe about what you are doing today?
Oh, all of it. Absolutely all of it. I think the thing that I would be most gobsmacked about is um the fact that I have 10 New York Times bestsellers. I'm still
Oh, I
amazed by that
forgot that.
today,
I
let
forgot to
alone,
mention that seven books from New York Times and also the Sunday Times list. That's
yeah.
amazing. It's congratulations for that. Now, when it's the red carpet for for the movie, will you attend? Probably you have to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. They're having a special screening in London, so I guess I'm gonna go. Maybe I have to buy a dress. That's a scary thought.
Probably they will give you a dress or something.
Hope so.
What's the stupidest question you've ever been asked about your work with books, or the stupidest comment someone has ever done from to one of your books?
Mm, this is probably, I don't know if this is stupid, but one of the first, I don't really read
Mhm.
online reviews anymore. I've gradually cured myself of doing it. But one of the first reviews that went up for In a Dot Dot Wood, which was my first book, and it was an American review, and the reviewer was very angry about all the clumsy Americanizations in the book. Apparently, there weren't any, but and one of the examples that she gave was that when the characters went running, they ran for 9 miles instead of kilometers, and we use miles in the UK, and it took everything that I had to not to reply to this review and say, actually,
No,
I
they
think
also
you're
use
fine.
miles. They don't use kilometers. Americans use miles also. So
No, no,
that's
I think that, but that was the thing. She thought that in the UK we used kilometers and that it had been changed to
oh.
miles for the American audience. Whereas in fact, I that was how I'd written it because in the UK we talk about miles per hour, our distances are measured in miles. So yeah, it was anyway. I don't know if that's the most stupid comment, but
It is, it is, it is.
it felt
That's great.
unfair. I was upset about it.
So, last question. Complete the sentence. If I didn't work with books, I would probably be.
So my plan B has always been if my writing career goes horribly wrong, I'm going to become an accountant because I'm quite good with numbers and I love a good
Really?
spreadsheet. Yes. So if I didn't work with books, I would be an accountant.
Okay, okay. Ruth, thank you for being here. You're very nice, very humble. I wish you all the luck. I'm going to ask to your Portuguese publisher. I'm going to ask Teresa so she can make you come here in Portugal to the book fair.
Oh, I
That
would
would be
love that.
lovely.
Yes.
That
Please
would be
invite me to
lovely.
all the Portuguese book fairs. Thank you so much for having me on, Dora. This has been just, yeah, really good fun. And I've loved being interviewed by you. So
Oh, it's not an interview. I'm not a journalist. I just
just
talk
a
a lot.
chat
I talk and talk more than sometimes the people that I invite. Don't forget what I asked you, the crazy thing.
about the
It's a secret.
photo.
It's a
Yep.
secret. It's a secret.
Okay. I'll come up with something fun.
Okay, so Ruth, bye bye. And then I will tag you once this goes up, probably in a week. Okay.
Brilliant.
So
Okay, I'll
bye
do that.
bye.
Take care
Huge
then.
kisses. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Great to meet you.
You too. Bye bye.